We're known for our parks here in the City of Trees, and people take a lot of pride in that. But some people on social media have recently criticized the state of Kathryn Albertson Park, upset with the growth along the edges of the walkways. New this morning, Chase Biefeld reached out to Boise Parks and Recreation to see why the park looks like this.
User Jod Zemek on Instagram posted these photos on Wednesday, claiming Kathryn Albertson Park in Boise has been completely disregarded and overrun by weeds. Other users also chimed in, expressing their disappointment with the park. I went down to Kathryn Albertson Park to see the growth for myself, and there is a lot of growth on the sides of the walkway, but Boise Parks and Recreation says that most of what you're seeing isn't weeds, and it's actually supposed to look like this. Director Doug Holloway told me that many of these weed-looking plants are actually pollinators for the park, consisting of many different plants and vegetation. He added that the area shown in the Instagram post clearly shows that pollinator mix. Holloway said in a written statement, the park is being redeveloped in many areas to a natural state with very little turf/grass. It is something folks will need to become used to because this is an environmentally based park and not your traditional green grass park. But we have received a lot of positive comments with the changes. He added, all of the more natural areas planted will outgrow any weedy parts over time. Despite the complaints, people are still out enjoying the nature at Kathryn Albertson Park.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, if you want to see a natural park, this is really nice.
Chase Biefeld, Idaho's News Channel 7.
My 20th anniversary is this weekend.
Now, here's what else we can tell you about this situation. Boise Parks and Recreation says the park is actively refreshing and updating Kathryn Albertson Park. Their team has been working closely with the Albertson Family Foundation through all the landscaping and design changes. If you have a question about any of the Boise parks, you can email BPR, Boise Parks and Rec, at cityofboise.org or visit their website. That link will be on ktvb.com when we post Chase's story in a little bit.